welcome to this exciting video where you once again join me in the beautiful lands of Scotland. And today we've come to the little town of Brechin because there's actually some cool, like, not abandoned history, but some interesting history around this place and some little interesting nuggets that's worth putting on a video. And I just started the episode here because the main road goes over the top of the old railway line here, and this is actually a steam railway which has been here from the old days of the Scottish steam railways, and it's still actually in use. And just check this out, we can actually see the old station. This is basically the back view into the Brechin railway station, the Caledonian Railway it's called. And I just thought it's a cool start to the video. I love looking at things that I've never seen before, and often we see the remains of the abandoned Scottish railways, so it's cool to actually see how they were when they were in their prime. Wow, there's a train coming! Here we are, folks, there's a train literally coming down the track right here towards us. Wow, this is cool, folks. Brechin's actually officially a city because it's got a cathedral, which is quite rare, and it's actually got an old Irish round tower which we might go and have a look at. Check this out, there's old like winches and old train carriages and things like that. Wow, this train's coming in super slow from the other side. So just look at the construction of this old rail bridge, folks, with the big rivets holding the iron together, the old metal. And I can hear that this is actually a diesel train which is coming down here just now. Maybe get him to toot his horn when he goes past if we're lucky. He's coming in quite slow, but that must just be the way they enter the station, because I'm sure there's like a footpath and stuff over there at the far end. Wow, this is so cool, folks. What a start to the video. I didn't even know we were going to be lucky enough to see a train come in. Just think, this is how it actually looked back in the olden days when these things was kicking about. Wow. Hear it, folks, it sounds a bit wild. Wow, that's so cool, folks. The guy was waving, the train driver. Shout out the train driver, like, look at these carriages. I should get a different angle here. What a special scene for the start of the video. I do apologise for any wind in the audio today, but the angle that we are standing at, it's quite like windy coming down this way. Wow, that's a long train. It gives you an idea of the sort of trains that used to go about after the steam trains were like phased out. It then became the diesel era, and that's the kind of diesel train that would have been going up and down these tracks. And it was so cool because I just literally like turned up here, and then the train was pretty much coming into the station. I can actually see on one of the train carriages down there, there's a giant electric motor. Right, folks, that was a cool start to the video. You really get an essence of the Brechin Railway and how it's still operational. And that train is actually running out to the Dun station, which is near like the bridge of Dun and that, which is featured on this channel before. But yeah, that was a cool start to the video. I just timed it right for the train coming on into the station. That was so cool. Now we'll head further around Brechin and see what other items of interest there is. It's just cool to see all like the variation of different things. Check this out, folks. I've come into the car park of the station and it's kind of sheltered from the wind here. Just check this out. We can actually see out onto the old platform here. Wow, look! So basically what they're doing here, they've turned the train around for sending the carriages back out to the Dun station. They've turned the train around so it's always pushing forward. And that's the same train we just saw coming in a minute ago. You hear the big old diesel engine right there. It looks to me like it's a 1950s or maybe a 60s train or whatever. But that was super cool to see that. And just think, this old station, it used to serve the community around here. Yeah, what a special scene this is, folks. Amazing. I just thought I would walk in this gate as I was going past. We'll take a walk down and look at the front of the train station. Sometimes the character of these old buildings is so cool to see. Built for the industrial purpose of the Scottish Railways, for the industry of the land, but also for carrying the people. And as you can see, the trains are running today according to this sign. I love that old blue and white sign up there. So it's so cool to see this here. It's the old front of the steam station, the steam train station. I can't even speak, folks. And it's still got the clock. The old clock and stuff up there on the front of the station. Anyway, we'll go and head across the road here, because there's actually another cool historical detail in this town here of Brechin, or city I should say, and it's actually up here. It's a statue in memory of the gentleman who invented the radar, and he was actually from this town here of Brechin. So let's go and check it out. It's so cool that there's so many different variations of history here. Like, people were involved with all sorts of things in all like walks of life, and the gentleman that invented this radar is a bit of a legend and was actually a big part of Britain winning the war and the creation of the early radar systems. The boy was called Sir Robert Alexander Watson Watt, and he lived from 1892 to 1973, and he was the pioneer of radar. Yeah, it's so special to see. You can see he's got it was actually called the chain home radar system that they developed and invented back at that time. And I've actually explored some of the old chain home radar sites on my channel, which you can go back and watch and get an idea of the essence of like what they were inventing and what it was for. But that was what the mast, he's got a mast in one hand and then an aeroplane in the other hand, and that's to obviously signify what he invented. If people like this weren't around to invent those fancy contraptions of war, then we might not have won the Second World War. And then Britain also handed the technology over to America, and they were actually able to pick up the planes entering the airspace on the way to Pearl Harbor. But when the Americans got the signal, they thought it was a faulty signal they were receiving. So they told the boy on the radar station just to ignore it and potentially even just go away home. And then it turned out that it was one of the greatest attacks of all time of the Americans by the Japanese. They actually did see it coming, which is crazy, on the radar system. But Britain had a certain part of their radar that they developed which the Americans didn't have, and the item was actually able to like boost the distance that you could pick up enemy craft. Check this out as well, folks. This is actually an old fountain which used to be located at the front of the Mechanics Hall on the road into Brechin, next to the Brechin Arms, and then at a later time it got moved into this kind of square. But yeah, what a little adventure. A town like Brechin has just got so much like old buildings and things from ancient times, even these old churches and things here. There's also a great heap of like abandoned churches, empty, on the buildings at risk register, and they're all located around Brechin as well. Look at this, the malls and the Ramsays, that's the people who own like the Dalhousie estate, Panmure estate, but also I explored Mall's Den Mansion, an abandoned mansion recently, and that was the Mall's family, and the fountain was actually built in remembrance of people from those families. So it's cool to put these little pieces of the Angus historical puzzle together on these adventures. Often little details and things like all tie in, and now we can get a different view here of the station. So special, folks. What a cool place. Anyway, we'll move on to the next location in this video and see what other history remains within this land. Look at this, folks. I just came a little bit further up the road and then I noticed they're actually escorting the big pea viners up through the town right here. So let's take this in. Let's watch them as they pass. These are big PMC Oxbow machines, quality machines, and let's just check them out. Let's give them a wave as they go past here. These machines are obviously used for harvesting the peas, folks. East Coast Viners, shout out, folks. They're obviously going around when the peas are ready. It's that East Coast Viners company there. They go around and harvest the peas. They go from field to field. I believe the company that makes those pea viners used to be called Ploger, but it's now actually Oxbow. The name has been changed. But there's a great big queue of traffic here behind them, which has all been held up obviously. But it's cool to see big machines like that. There's a boy up ahead of them, like escorting them to clear the road. You can see why with the size of them. So check it out, folks. This is actually one of the abandoned churches that I spoke about, which is within this town of Brechin. I do apologise for the wind blowing down this street right now. Just check this out though. It's such a shame a building like this can actually be empty and abandoned for so long. It is obviously for sale. If anybody wants to buy it, call this number. But just look at the stonework and stuff here around the door. Absolutely incredible, like intricate carving right here. And even though I drive past this quite a lot, it's cool to be up close. I can actually see the carving on the stone up there. It's just mind blowing to see. Look at it here. Here's an easier one to actually look at. Look at the detail of the face. And this is called the East Church and Hall, 1856 to 1897. Architects J.W.H. Hay and J.M. Hay and T.M. Capone. So just think how long this has stood here, from the 1800s. Now it's just abandoned, waiting on somebody either buying it or whatever, giving it a new lease of life. It looks like that must be the old hall which is in behind it there. It's crazy, buildings like this are often just like abandoned in the middle of a town. Like here in Brechin, you would think a building like that would go, like, be snapped up quick. It would make an excellent nightclub. This would be obviously the main entrance at this end, and then you could have the DJ up at the far end. Wherever the minister used to stand could be the DJ's location in the club. Yeah, wow, what a building, folks. I just thought I would walk past it. Since I was recording those pea viners at the other side of the road, I just thought, why not have a look at this as well. Wow, noisy trailer away past. What a crazy bit of land this is, folks. And then this is actually the Brechin Cemetery here, and check this out. It's got a mad like viaduct under there. Incredible stone carving from back in the day. And I remember a few years ago this house here was actually for sale, but it looks like it's now somebody's home. Somebody's bought it and renovated it, whatever, to its former glory. And imagine having this at your front door. A crazy, I'm sure there's 8 arches here, like a viaduct. Wow, it's amazing to see, folks. Amazing indeed. And I think this is called the Brechin Den, this area leading off up towards like my left hand side here. So as you can see, the cemetery bridge and lodge was built in 1876 by John Henderson. It's quite cool in Brechin how they've got those signs on the old buildings and that show you the year they were built, and also the architects which constructed them and designed them. Let's go under and have a look down at the bottom of this thing. So there you go, folks, check it out, the old stone arches with that church in the background. Scenes of incredible architecture, almost gone and forgotten. With that church, it's just degrading every year and stuff like that. The good thing with this road is obviously it's cared for and looked after. And there's actually an identical one of these built by the same architect around the same time, and it's located on the main drive into Dalhousie Estate, into Dalhousie Castle. And look at this, this is the castle, the cemetery gates, also featuring fancy carving. I quite like that, just going now and again around some of these little Scottish towns, taking in little nuggets of the local areas and histories in the areas. You often uncover wee stories, wee interesting nuggets about the place. Anyway, let's head on away from here and find something else which is interesting and cool. Look at this, folks, next to this kind of main road car park bit, I think it's called the Old Mason Jew Carrick or whatever, but just look at this ancient door. Think how long ago this was put in. Look at the stonework and the stone carving, how it's so eroded. I think with this building, it's just the front here that's left, just to save the history. They've kept this one bit of the construction, and it's kind of just literally right on the corner of this road beside the main car park here. Mason Jew Lane East Car Park, it says. Check out, folks, this is the main street of Brechin here, and I've never seen it so quiet. A lot of these old shops and stuff here dating back to the 1800s, early 1800s, maybe even older. All these old buildings here in the town, they're just incredible. And this is the top of the Brechin High Street here, leading down the hill. And I was just looking at this, the United Cooperative Society Limited Brechin, 1833 till 1933. So I can see there's a sign there, Cathedral and Round Tower, and that's what we're heading for next, folks. There's some ancient signs up there. In this house was born Thomas Guthrie DD, 12th of July 1803. So I'm not sure what he was doing. He must have been a local agent here in the town. So I love the character of these Scottish towns, with like the way the old buildings are, with the different sizes of windows and that from the different eras. Probably the houses at the top stay similar, whereas all the shops below are constantly being modernised, upkept to modern culture. And it's just so interesting to see the different variation of shops and stuff you also get in these towns. And this is kind of the main Brechin High Street. It's a one-way from this point all the way up that road, and then this way behind me is like a one-way coming down the hill. But many years ago it used to just be two ways everywhere. The roads were so narrow though, as cars and stuff got bigger and roads got busier, a lot of the Scottish towns adopted like one-way streets and things like that to make it a bit easier. It saves you having to pull in every time like a car or whatever goes past. Yeah, some of these little streets, see at the far side, that wee shop in the middle, that one there, Davidson Veterinary Supplies, that looks like such a like Harry Potter shop almost. It's almost like Diagon Alley or whatever when you walk around these places. 1881, this one here. The top window's got like a little balcony. That's what I love about the character of these places, folks. Even here, look at the way these stairs lead up. Shops like that or buildings like that, they just look completely empty. Skeletons of the former busy, hustling, bustling town centres. Now there's only ever a few shops, and some of the more like rare genres of shops, they're never open for very long. They often open for a while and then they close within a few years. Anyway, I'm heading down here, folks, because the building on my left is actually the old cinema. It used to be the cinema of Brechin, and then in later years it was actually one of the biggest nightclubs in the UK, and it was called Flick's Nightclub. So let's have a look at the old building, see what remains of it to this day. Flick's Nightclub was famous because Pete Waterman and Michaela Strachan used to present a programme, I think it was called Hitman and Her, and most weekends they were actually broadcasting live from this very nightclub here in Brechin. And on YouTube you can actually find videos of this club when it was in its prime. Some of the old TV shows and that have been uploaded by people to YouTube, and just check it out. You could tell it was kind of a cinema originally, but the character of it now, like just being so like decayed and degraded, it's just amazing to see the way the paint and stuff like peels off after years. I think in later years it was actually, they tried to make it a nightclub again and they called it Arena, but it just never really took off. Just think about the thousands of people. This would have been such a mad like night out for them back in the day. It was probably the scene of many great partying. I wonder how many people got turfed down these steps after getting too carried away. Wow folks, I love seeing stuff like this and just imagining how it was when it was in its prime. It's just such a shame buildings like that become skeletons of their former existence. It's just quite sad in the end. There must have been another building at this side here which has been fully demolished, and I would think this old Flicks building will probably get demolished in the end as well, because it's just deteriorating every year and the water and stuff gets in. Before you know it, buildings like that are just fully like falling down. This is like backstreet alley Scotland here folks. You often see the beautiful places on my channel and the beauty of Scotland. Well, just take a look at this. It's the same as every other country. Once you go up some of the back alleys or back streets, it can be quite a mess. But that character of the abandonment is what I love. When plants and nature start to take back over places like this, it adds a whole new element to them. And it is cool to come and record these places at a certain time in their history. Especially places like this, which was like such a popular club of Flicks nightclub folks. So check it out folks, there must have been like some homeless person or something potentially living in there. That must be where their heating shed is. I can see it's highly secure with multiple padlocks, so they must be thinking about doing something with it, maybe renovating it or some of those things. Anyway, I'll head on now until the next abandoned wonder comes into sight. So check it out folks, I've come directly opposite Flicks and now I'm heading down the steps because I think there's a path takes me up by the river and it should take me right into the grounds of the round tower and cathedral, which I'm aiming for on this adventure. I can see there's been a lot of old walls and things here, maybe original buildings which were taken away many years ago. Maybe old industry or maybe even old like gas works or something. I've just noticed folks, there's a door leading on under the road. This is crazy folks, because this could literally be somebody's garden here. Check this out folks, look at this. Real adventures on the channel once again. Oh, this is what it is, look. I was thinking it was a tunnel leading away under, but you can see there has been hinges on there at a certain time. When I saw these stairs and that coming up, I just thought, what have we found? And it's often mad when you're in a town, you find things that are just not in the mainstream routes and things like that. Check it out folks, this is the bottom path which goes right along by the burn down here, and up at the top of the hill at the far side is actually Brechin Castle, which I think earlier in this episode I called it the Dalhousie Castle, but that's actually the home of the Lord Dalhousie and that, and it's Brechin Castle, and it's up at the other side of these trees. But I'm hoping if I follow this path along here, it should take me to the old cathedral. So this burn down beside me, I can see it's had proper walls and stuff built alongside of it at a certain time, and it was most likely used for powering mills and things like that back in the olden days. Like, often a burn like that was handy for a town like Brechin. So up through the trees there folks, I can actually see the back wall and the roofs of Brechin Castle, which is obviously a private residence, private estate, but it does back right onto here, which is like the public land of Brechin. I can see there's some massive trees that's fallen down that hill, and I'm just keeping following this path. It's starting to get steeper and narrower the further up the hill that I come here. So something that won't be coming across on the camera here, folks, the smell of all the bushes and the plants and stuff like that. Such a special like smell. Almost the smell of summer. Look at this, the gate's open. I'm sure one time I walked all the way up here and the gate was actually closed. So we're in luck. Here we are, look, boom. Incredible. Brechin Cathedral, folks. I was here one time years ago on my channel. So it's so cool to come back and document it once again. The channel's come so far since like the last time I was here. And just check it out, this is actually the old Irish round tower at this side. One of only two. I believe it's only two in the UK. Obviously the rest of them will be in Ireland. I think there's either two of these in Scotland or... yeah, I'm pretty sure it's in Scotland. There's only two of these Irish round towers. And I believe the door was built at that high height for security reasons, because it would be so hard to climb up in and attack a thing like that. And then this is the cathedral at this far side. It looks like, judging from the newer stonework, it's been joined together at a certain time. They've actually tried to make the round tower part of the cathedral at a certain time with their architecture. I can also see the copper strip coming down the wall there from the lightning conductor. Wow, I love looking at these old buildings, how they were constructed. Look at that, that must be like potentially a mason's mark or whatever of its era. It's unusual to find mason's marks on towers because, look, there's another one. That must be what it is, it's mason's marks. Often the stone masons would be paid for the amount of stones they had carved. So they all had individual marks, and when the stone was carved they would put their mark onto it, and that was the way they got paid for how many stones they had carved. Check this out, here's the copper strip from this one. Obviously if lightning hits the top of one of these, if it didn't have a copper strip earthing it to the ground, it would blow the masonry off, because the electronic arc would be earthing through the structure itself. So with the copper strip, it just takes the power of the lightning strike down, puts it into the ground. Listen, the bells are going. Look at this is impressive. This old stone cross here. 1970. This cross, which once stood above the city road, is placed here as a reminder of the succession witnessed from 1764 onwards in Brechin. It also commemorates the many services to the city rendered by David Both Toms and MAFSA Scott, 1901 to 1980, as schoolmaster, clerk and historian, who saved the cross from destruction in 1970. Oh, so this stone cross was potentially going to get lost or damaged, and that gentleman rescued it for future generations to see the history. And I love all these faces along the top on the stone carving. It's almost like gargoyles or ancient creatures of sorts. And inside I can see this incredibly detailed stained glass windows with like the lead lining. Even like each one of these gravestones, folks, it's like so interesting to see the variation in different stones. If I walked around each one, it would be most of the video just trying to look at that. So today we'll take in this incredible architecture of the building. Maybe one day in the future we'll come back and look at some of the rarer gravestones within this cemetery. I can see the street there of Brechin through the trees. It's just such a picturesque, beautiful little town. Often if you're driving through certain Scottish towns, you can't even really, like, you just see the main roads and it looks quite modern, but sometimes once you go in some of the smaller back streets and stuff, it's just ancient history round every corner. And look at this, Speed of our Dovey, and just check the size of his grave site here. And look, he's got this glass window above the stone, which is quite good, because for sure that'll be protecting the stone. Just unfortunately the glass or perspex has become quite cloudy and we can hardly read it. We can't even read the gravestone. Wow, wow, I just love seeing things like that. The different variation of gravestones or headstones. It's just so interesting. Some of them are just so old. I love seeing the oldest ones. Look at this one here leaning up against the wall. The stone carving on it is so impressive. And then look at this round stained glass window. One of the most prominent, impressive features here on the chapel, on the cathedral I should call it. And it's just mad, like, I think it's now closed as far as services and things go here. It's no longer used like it was used at one time. Wow, I'm always blown away by the detail of the stonework. These buildings were obviously crafted with the finest of stone masons, the finest quality work. And we're now around the opposite side to where we came into the site, and just look at this incredible structure, folks. It's blowing me away, the detail of the stone carving and things around the doors and that. It's just magical. Just think about that, carving things like that out of a solid stone. Just think this whole stone here is a solid stone and they've carved all that out of it. So impressive. And then each bit of the pattern joins to the next stone. When they had completed a structure like this, they must have just been so happy with their work. And then look at the carving around the door here. Absolutely beautiful work, folks, and it's cool to document things like this on the channel. Sometimes on the videos I'm out in the wild, like wild wildernesses, but today it's been cool to come to a town and just see what a town's got to offer. And it just goes to show there's just old things, new things, interesting things, even the trains and stuff like that. It was so cool to see. It's been so much fun to have that variation on this video. Look at this, here's some of the old stone coffins lying here. This is what the people used to get buried in back in the day. Unfortunately these ones have been broken in half, but look, you can actually see the shape where the head would have lain. And they actually used to have like a cutout in the middle, a small groove. You can kind of see it. For some reason they had that. I'm not sure if it was for like fluids or whatever, once the body was like decomposing. Wow, I've just absolutely loved walking around here. This is actually, see what I'm thinking, I apologise for the wind there, it's gusting around, but I think this is maybe the original entrance here, because look how old the stonework is, and look how eroded it is compared to the door that we just looked at, which must have been built around the same time as the extension on the side of the cathedral there. I love seeing the gargoyles or whatever, or the wee faces which are around some of the windows. Wow, it's just a massive structure, folks. And it is a shame that nowadays, like, places like this are struggling to stay open because there's just not the same funding anymore for them. Magnificent buildings like this just starting to become abandoned or heading in the wrong direction, basically. Probably if there was some serious masonry work needed in a place like this nowadays, they would struggle to fund it. Whereas at one time, they could have fixed it no problem. When you see the detail of the stonework on the doors, around the windows, and it's just mind blowing. I love the art of the stone carving and the different levels they went to. It's like almost a lost trade here in Scotland, because modern buildings, they didn't have the finances and resources to go to that level of detail when they're carving. Most modern buildings are just some plain stones or bricks which were pre-made, just fit together, and they're often modern buildings are just smooth with like no detail. I love seeing buildings like this which are almost castle-like with their towers, the clocks up on the tower. Wow, folks, what an adventure it's been indeed. Anyway, let's head on from here and see what else we see on this walk. This must have been the old church hall at the far side. Looks like it was built around the same time as the extension on the cathedral. Wow, look at this. See, this is another one of these little alleyways here in Brechin. There's quite a lot of them. So this is actually the mechanics hall up here in front of me, and that's the location where we saw the fountain. After we saw the statue earlier in the video, we looked at the fountain, and this is actually where the fountain used to be located originally. It used to be right in front of this hall here, and this is the main road into Brechin when you come in from like the dual carriageway and that. So check it out, folks. Yet another incredible piece of architecture here in the land, and I'm sure this is called the Mechanics Hall. And right there is actually where the fountain used to stand, right there, many years ago. Look at this, here's a motorbike club or whatever goes past. Oh yeah, look, the Mechanics Institute. Through the generosity of Lord Panmure, this building was erected in 1839. It housed the 3 public schools, the High, the Parochial and the Borough, on the ground floor, and the Mechanics Hall upstairs for public meetings and cultural activities. A former school building stood here from 1840. So there you go, there's an interesting little bit of history about this corner of Brechin. Often once you start exploring somewhere, that's when you realise there's so many little individual stories of history to tell. Even with like Mechanics Hall or things like that. Just check it out, this is the main high street again, which we were further along. Earlier in the video we already walked down past this area. There we go, folks, the main street of Brechin. That's where you still get most of the decent shops or whatever. That's like the heart of Brechin down that street basically. But this time of day, it's almost midday, but Brechin's quite quiet, probably because it's a Sunday. And I'm just basically walking back up here to this Mason Dew car park where I parked. Anyway, I'm going to end this video here, folks. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll be back soon with the next adventure. Wherever I end up going, I'll see you soon.